it's not about, to who you're selling, but it's about how you sell it.
We are selling low value, high volume of customers, B2C kind of selling.
Where the customers come in high volume and they also pay you less.
But let's start looking at, having fewer customers, but really big in numbers, it just cracks.
When the volume is low, but the value is high, it turned out different.
So you have multiple marketing channels and you're selling probably through affiliates, you're selling through, there is no direct touch.
It really doesn't matter about your target audience, irrespective of whether who's your target audience.
Exactly. Whether it is a customer or it is a business,
They remain the same.
Individual doesn't mean you're a customer. Just because you're selling to a business, it doesn't mean you're a team.
Is that to understand what is your sales and marketing strategy, which is going to be tailored to what you want to sell. So now, how do you play this to a B2B?
B2B selling is very different.
If you're selling it to customers or you're selling it to business, this is how I'm used to looking at it, right?
Going good, Ramesh. How are you doing? I'm doing very well. How was weekend?
Weekend was awesome, busy as usual. Getting to play with kids and playing with chocolate and getting some catching up with some games.
And that was right after the Bangalore trip.
It was fun. Let's start with your Bangalore trip.
Oh well, that's a beautiful story, right? And I'm just doubly convinced that humanity is here to go on forever, right? There's this beautiful story that happened. So we were traveling to Bangalore, and it was early morning, and we were a little groggy, but still I decided to start work early because we had to speak to someone from Australia. And I just took out my notebook, I started writing, and then breakfast obviously is one of the most look forward to events in a train journey. I was hungry. The breakfast came. I decided to just plunk my diary to the side and started eating. We packed up. The train reached Bangalore. I packed up. And when we reached the meetings, I had absolutely my notebook was missing. Okay, struck to me then that I had left it while at breakfast. And the day went by, right? Obviously, a lot of things were running in my head. I was trying to kind of understand what were the notes that I had taken up. But this is where it's beautiful, right? The next day, we come back to Chennai. I'm super tired. I go sleep. The next morning, I come to office, and then Mani says he's got it figured out. I see the notebook on my
table. Okay, when you come back on the morning next day,
next day morning. And wow, this is where I really, fascinated by humanity. So what had happened is someone had found my notebook.
Oh, this was on the train.
On the train.
The next day, somebody was traveling.
Yes, and they saw my they didn't even see, but they didn't have my number. Obviously, they'd seen a phone number whom they had contacted to.
But this was a number which was written in the book.
In the last page, the last written page,
some random number.
Yeah, he had the good sense prevailed to call them up. My name was in the beginning of the book, and then they realized that it belongs to Ramesh from High Performer, and that person said he was talking to someone else, and that was Money. Money then got it done. So technology meets logistics, and the next day it's here. How beautiful is that? So that is my weekend story.
It also get to show that Indian Railways they sell some good breakfast.
Absolutely, yes. Indian Railways Vande Bharat has certainly got some good breakfast. Very different from the time it was earlier. With that, welcome to yet another episode of Reset to Zero. I've been having fun doing this podcast series, and we're going to be talking a lot. So
let's get started. Let's get started about B2C and versus B2B, right?
All right.
Let's talk about that. It's not about to who you're selling, but it's about how you sell it.
Wow, that's intriguing. You seem like a marketing professor today.
Let's double click on that, right? Let's talk about B2B versus B2C.
Great point, because very recently at the TechCrunch, there was an article by Hayek, and he's talking about the same thing. He's talking about the selling to B2B versus selling to B2C. I think the fact is fundamentally we make up our minds inside on who we are selling to, right? And we think of them as businesses or customers. That's the separation that we make in our head versus how we sell to. Right?
So that's you're bringing a very intriguing point, right? This will be pretty much interesting to all our listeners. Most of them are entrepreneurs, founders. They will find it very interesting, right? They will find it very useful. So we are used to thinking about B2B, B2C by how we sell if you're selling it to customers or you're selling it to business. This is how I'm used to looking at it, right? hey, are you selling into B2, into customers? Or are you selling into businesses? Then we'll put you into bucket of B2B and B2C, right?
Maybe we're looking at it all wrong so far.
That's interesting. So that's pretty interesting. So why don't you kind of well into and tell us, what you understood, and maybe it'll be nice to give an example from what you've seen in the past.
I think there's a twist in the way, right? As I read Hayes' article on TechCrunch as well, very well articulated. So in the past, what we've been doing is we are selling low value, high volume of customers, right? We are selling low value products, and the volume is large.
Okay.
And that is mentioned by as B2C kind of selling because it involves a lot of marketing activities. It has multiple types of marketing. It has influencer marketing. It has brand marketing involved. It has direct selling. You're able to dial into customers. So that is more of a B2C selling. And it really doesn't matter whether you're selling to a customer or a business, as long as our sales motion is B2C.
Okay. So what you're saying is that if you're basically selling and if you're marketing, to basically, have customers buy products where the customers come in high volume and they also pay you less.
Correct.
And you put
Low
them
value.
in low value, which means a low value, high volume, has a base motion, which is refined for selling that kind of products, right? Then you put them into B2C.
That's right.
Okay.
And if you flip that, like if you take this, instead of flipping it, if you take the same process of selling into large value, low number of clients, it doesn't work. It breaks. And I've seen that in my previous organizations. When we try to replicate the same model and say, let's go a little upmarket, let's have the same marketing channels, but let's start looking at having fewer customers but really big in numbers, it just cracks.
That's interesting. What you're saying is, let's just hop into the B2B, right? What you're saying is a high C. I'm talking about B2B now. Right. When I have a high volume, and if you have low values at B2C,
That is
as you said, when the volume was low, but the value is high.
Correct.
You would say that the sales motion and the marketing, it turned out different.
You don't need to. Because it isn't different because we've seen it as ourselves, Sri. But here is another product,
Okay.
where it belongs to when you start selling to fewer customers, but the value is higher, very less marketing perhaps, or there are not multiple marketing channels. It just works like a charm.
That's very interesting. In fact, you try to bring a very contra, thinking. I mean, in fact, I kind of also lead to agree with what Ramesh says, right? Where it really doesn't matter about your target audience, right? What really matters here as a startup founder, an entrepreneur, which we know is figure out is that try to understand what is your sales and marketing strategy.
That's exactly what we're
Let's take examples, Ramesh. Let's keep it, try to explain it much easier. Though.
Sure.
Now, let's take an example where, from what you've seen in the past, where you've been selling high volume and low value, right? What happens if we keep the marketing same? Let's say you've been generating inbound, whatever you want to call it. Now, if you basically put it into a different sales motion, does it work? Can you give an example? What do you say?
It work. Like, let's take Canva, for example.
Okay.
Canva, targeting designers.
Okay.
You go and sell I1. You go and sell it to every designer out there through multiple channels. You have the one website, you have a community, you try and do a little bit of branding around it, right? You go and sell it to various design agencies and so on. So you have multiple marketing channels, and you're selling probably through affiliates, you're selling through, there is no direct touch. There is no high touch involved in this. There's no relationship building in this.
Oh, there's a relationship with which means it's a low touch.
It is absolutely low touch.
Okay. So what you're saying is that if you look at Canva, I know you be the Canva, the customer as an individual.
Absolutely.
Now that you start out with high performer and you try and use Canva for
exactly.
So you don't see a difference in the sales and the marketing.
I don't see any difference, right? Okay. I would even go and buy a team plan
in the same sales and marketing.
Sales marketing motion, because I've discovered myself that I'm an individual, and it's not that you're selling. So individual doesn't mean you're a customer. Just because you're selling to a business, it doesn't mean you're a team.
Interesting. So, I can give another example from what I've seen from a product point of view. Is like, take an example of Figma.
Yeah.
Like Figma does the same thing with designers, right? They get them started as a designer.
Yes.
Now, we're trying to use it for the team. We want to add like a developer instance and all that. The motion is same. Yeah. It's a low touch business, right? It's a low touch motion.
Yeah.
Right? Irrespective of whether who's the target audience.
Exactly.
Whether it is
a customer
or it is a business, they remain the same. Absolutely. That's what you're trying to say. But that's basically in this case, you would put them as a B2C.
B2C kind of selling because it involves volume. You've got to figure out multiple channels of marketing, multiple channels of selling. You have an affiliate sales. We would do that.
I wish I knew that, few years back.
It's very, Hai puts it very well.
Let's just take a step back. I think it's a very interesting thing. In fact, at least we're kind of learn it as we get things going for high performer, right? It is not about your target audience. It is actually looks like it's irrelevant, right? What is more important is that to understand what is your sales and marketing strategy, which is going to be tailored to what you're going to sell.
Correct.
Whether it is basically high volume, low value products. And that's what you're going to figure out, right? And then Ramesh, I want to know one more question, right? Now that you're saying that all it matters is your sales and marketing motion, right? Yes. Now, there are companies for whom the business is automatically come and buy, right?
Yeah.
In this case, let's take an example of a Canva.
Yeah.
Right? It will even happen for for high performer where some individuals might come and buy your product because you're selling a social media, kind of a help, kind of management, be able to build the social presence. There might be an individual, there might be a creator who will come and buy the product.
We're not going to say no.
But what would you do? How would you treat them differently?
There is no difference in the way I would sell, right? It's if I were to draw parallels with Canva,
Okay.
I got to know of Canva through branding. I got to know of Canva because someone else was saying it's very easy to use. My cousin said it.
Okay.
Right. And similarly, for high performer,
Okay.
if an individual wants to schedule and publish their tweets or put stuff on LinkedIn, it's the same process. I'm not going to have a high touch model over there, go outbound, figure this person out and sell to them.
That's interesting. So now, how do you play this to a B2B? Does it also applies to a B2B as well?
B2B selling is very different. It is all about high touch, building relationships. So when you're building, maybe, the way the business could be is enterprise grade. No, I don't know what that means, but it is an enterprise grade software where you need, let's say AWS, for example.
Okay.
The selling doesn't happen in weeks. It could take months or perhaps a year.
Okay.
Right? So, if AWS is selling to ServiceNow, I'm just giving an random example. You can't just shift within a day. It's a long haul process. You probably need relationship building dinners. We take them for golf games to the buyer, understand what they need. It's just not, you cannot sell that over a website form fill.
Okay. So in that case, then what you're saying is also brings a very interesting point where the type of people you want to hire, the talent you need, the skills you need, very different. Even for a marketing person, a sales person, based on your sales motion and the product you're going to sell, whether high value, low value, you go to different.
It's very, very true. That's a very good point that you're bringing in, Sri, because I think we often talk about sales processes,
right,
but there's also a marketing process involved in this. Correct. When you are selling to your audiences, large audiences, right? When your volume of customers that you're going behind, you got to market in volumes. Like you can't market for a specific individual who's going to buy, right? So, and that makes it slightly complex as well, both from a marketing channel perspective and the narrative in itself.
Okay. And I was going to ask you a few questions, right? I just want to, because this is a very, very interesting, topic and very useful. Somebody like an early stage startup founder or they're trying to pick up the GTM, right? Ramesh, you mentioned when you're, about a while back that, hey, you would try this in the opposite way, right? In the past. What's been your learning? Maybe we can bring up two or three learnings on. Let's say you had figured out a B2C motion, right? In the past. And you had a B2C motion and talking about sales and marketing strategy. Correct. Doesn't matter. Who is your customer? Let's assume that part for a minute. Now, if you do the other ways, what happens? What are the early indicators that, hey, this is not working and you should change the motion? How do you figure that out?
That's a good point. I wish I had an answer prepared for this. You put me on the spot. But if the B2C way of selling will not work for a high volume, high value customer. That is very clear, right? If you're just going to say, I'm going to do branding, I'm going to be influencers to talk about the product.
Right.
I'm going to rip off this product in terms of comparing with competitors.
Okay.
And think that someone who's already using my competition is going to buy. That's not going to work.
Okay.
We can't even go back to them. Let's say you have an outbounding team per se.
Okay.
It's not going to work. You can't say just because you have an outbound team, it doesn't mean you're doing B2B selling. It doesn't mean when you have a BDR and an AE kind of setup, that you're going behind businesses. That is still, applicable for high volume business as well, as long as your unit economics works for you. So, to your point, if I'm trying to sell, use the same sales and marketing methodologies to go and sell to a large client or
Right.
large prospect with a very high value, they won't even know. They don't care about it right now. They're not ready. How have we built the relationship? That counts way more.
So what you're saying is that we're talking about building long-term relationships,
Yes.
ability to build long-term relationship conversations, building pipeline,
Yeah.
and then that translates into B2B.
Let me complete my part. I think this just because we think that the large customer has come and bought a product because you're in a B2C kind of a selling motion, correct? It doesn't mean you can start attacking the B2B.
That's a very interesting point. A lot of times what we misunderstand, or we think that we already have a product market fit for a B2B
Setup. Yeah.
is when we find a small team in a large enterprise buy your product.
Yeah, exactly.
Right? I mean, this happens all the time. Yeah, where we only look at the brand. We look at that. Hey, I got Cisco buying us. I got one of the largest brand. Their Fortune client that buy us, and we start thinking that we are ready for enterprise. We are ready for B2B. But what we are missing is that we have to first go understand whether if you have a sales and marketing motion which can support that. Correct. Right. So for all since your product is built for self-service, typical B2C motion, we tend to get anybody and everybody who would discover you online.
Yeah, that's true. Discoverability is the first.
That's still B2C motion.
That is still B2C motion.
Awesome. That gets me.
Yeah, absolutely. Right? The more we talk about it, I think it gives us clarity as well. So think about the situation. I mean, another example is Miro. Right? The amazing, beautiful product. Now, just because I figured out that I need to do a brainstorming session, I came online. I take one template of putting up Miro for my brainstorming session. And let's assume I'm an enterprise. Just because I buy Miro doesn't give license to Miro to come and build relationship with me and say, okay, Miro has cracked into the enterprise. Now let's go unload. Yeah. They're using it for specific teams, and you have to dissect the motions of marketing and say, are you selling to a small team inside? Which means you're not really enterprise ready.
That's right. The reason why we picked up this topic, let's just talk about that as a today. We've been talking to multiple businesses, startups, and as we are trying to build the demands, sensing, an opportunity within firm, or how we could help businesses generate their pipeline for B2B, right?
Yeah.
How we're trying to do. And then what we realize is that we need to basically first figure out, or we need to first bucket our prospects, whether they are B2C or B2B. And we are in the business of helping B2B businesses, build their pipeline. And that's when we discovered that the sales motion or the marketing motion strategy actually determines whether they are B2B or B2C.
I think very, very well said. Just because we are reaching out to our venture capitalist friends to refer our businesses,
correct,
it doesn't mean we are going to B2B selling.
Correct.
Right? At the end of it, it will be a B2C kind of a sell where we are selling. It could be an individual consumer, it could be businesses.
Correct. We got few wrong, actually. That's when we realized that, what? It is not about the target audience they are actually catching. It's actually their sales and marketing setup. Hey, what is their sales motion? Is our first discovery question now. And that's when we realized, hey, pipeline generation isn't even an activity in their sales motion.
Exactly.
And only then we realize that, hey, looks like they're B2B only when they have certain things, certain key artifacts like building a pipeline, correct? Right? Having to build a relationship with their prospects, right? And things like that. And that's when we basically started thinking, what, we need to go back and think ourselves, question ourselves, either understanding about B2B, B2C, is it wrong or right? For example, we always think if you sell it to customers, you're B2C, and if you're selling to business, you're B2B. Looks like it is high time you take a step back and understand what is the sales and marketing motion, and then you get to deciding whether you're B2B or B2C.
Absolutely. I think that's come very clear in my mindset, and I'm able to hope to apply it.
Absolutely. That's where we're here today. I think, Ramesh.
Yeah.
Great conversation, and feel free to add your comments, add your thoughts on the pod as
below, and they subscribe. So this has been a very good revelation for us purely in terms of how do we go. Just because you've got a big brand signing up for your product, it doesn't mean that you're B2B ready. And just because you're able to sell to multiple big clients we're not ready to do the B2C, right? So I think that's the
I think the key thing, Ramesh, that you have summarized in that, right? If somebody has to basically take away, if they have to go back and classify them as B2B, B2C, can you just give them your formula?
Formula is very simple. What's your marketing and sales machinery? If it belongs to, if you're doing multiple channels of marketing, if you're having influencer marketing, if you're having direct marketing, if you're able to sending many more emails, if you're doing if you're just doing cold calling because you want customers to kind of look at it, multiple marketing channels and multiple sales, it is B2C kind of a selling. The customer could either be a B2C or B2B. That doesn't matter. It could be an individual customer. It could be a business. Do not get confused by saying, I sell only to B2B. I think that's very clear for us. If you're in the business of selling large value, low volume clients, you don't want to get more than 20 clients in a year, but they're really the $1 million deals that could go. That is B2B selling. Right? Yeah. The sales process there is very high touch, very relationship based. You get it over a period of time. The relationship building could happen over 6 months, but the selling would happen probably 6 months later as well. So that's where I would like to leave this. Also, thank you. Great conversation, Ramesh, right? And thank you to Girish who really formed this little book of mine because it's got a lot of notes, which I don't know if I'll go back and read ever, but that is my story. So thank you so much for watching this edition of Reset to Zero, and keep watching as we bring together our learnings to you in this podcast.